Greetings, barbecue family. Welcome to another live episode of the Backyard SmokeMaster BBQ Podcast. I'm your host, Kenyatta Robinson. Thank you for tuning in. Let's get right into it. Tonight, we're going to talk about brine, marinade, or inject. What is better for your barbecue? And I know this is a common question that I get. So today, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of all three of these methods. And as always, I invite you all to chime in with your comments. Let me know, which of these methods do you prefer? Have you had any interesting experiences with one of them? Has something worked really well for you or maybe didn't work so well for you? Please get into the comments and share with our barbecue community. As I say every week, your comments are the engine that drives the show. And before we dive in, let's say hello to Mike. Good to see you, Mike. Appreciate you. Mike says, I'm doing an overnight brisket on my Lone Star pellet smoker tonight. And Mike likes to brine his chicken and turkey and marinade steak and inject pork butts. But that's just me. Your mileage may vary. And that, of course, will hold true for each and every one of us. We all are going to have our own preferences, things that really work well for us, or maybe not so well for us. So would love to know you all's thoughts about each of these different methods. So let me get started. Let's talk about, first off, brining. Okay, so again, we're talking about brining, marinating, injecting. So what is brining? Brining is a saltwater solution, usually with some sugar, herbs, and spices. And the goal is really to achieve moisture and tenderness. The salt in the brine actually changes the structure of the meat and it helps it hold on to more juices when it is cooked. Think of it as like giving the meat a hydration boost from the inside out. And some of the more common meats that you might want to do with the brine include whole chickens, turkey, pork chops, stuff that can dry out pretty easily during your cook, especially in barbecue, going low and slow. So you're thinking your meat's going to be on the smoker for a good while, taking in that smoke flavor. You don't want it to dry out during the process. Now, marinades, okay, so marinades a little bit different, and I think a lot of people may get confused between the difference in what's a marinade and what's a brine. So a marinade is a mix of acid, like vinegar or citrus, oil, and flavorings like garlic, herbs, and spices. The goal is more to bring surface to the flavor, to bring the flavor to the surface, the outside surface of your meat. So not so much deep penetration, it's more of a flavoring on the outside is what you're going for with a marinade. The acid breaks down the outer layer of the meat a little, which can add some tenderness, but not too much, because too much of it can then make your meat, can make it mushy. And we don't want that. It doesn't really get too far past the surface, especially with your thicker cuts. And common uses with the marinade are going to be things like steaks, chicken breasts, veggies, things that don't cook quickly or don't need a really deep seasoning. Okay. So again, it doesn't really get too far past the surface. So the analogy that you can think of when comparing the brining to marinating is brining is like seasoning from the inside of the meat, while marinating is like seasoning the outside. And then, of course, we also have injecting. So What is injecting? So basically, this is where you have like a liquid that you formulated. It's going to be flavorful, something that you want to get into the meat. So it's a flavorful liquid inserted directly into the meat, gets the seasoning and moisture deep inside. And one of the benefits of injecting is that it does the job fast, gets it done quickly. You can inject things like broth, melted butter, seasoning blends, apple juice, or any combination or whatever, combination that you want to come up with liquids. Another benefit is that you're not going to have to wait hours for the flavor to slowly soak in. And injecting is commonly done with large, thick cuts like brisket, pork shoulder, or whole turkeys. So kind of like a quick cheat sheet. Pro tips. So if you've got a thick cut in very little time, inject it. If you want something juicy, like if you want juicy pulled pork or a juicy turkey, brine it. And if you want some surface flavor pretty fast, marinate it. All right. So again, I welcome you all. Jump into the comments. Do you have a preference between these three cooking styles? Definitely let me know. Now let's get into the pros and cons. So for brining, again, big time pros. Brining adds moisture. Ingredients can be simple, not too complicated. On the flip side, brining takes a while. And also, I should point out with brining, you can either do like a dry brine, so that's just where you're putting different seasonings on the surface of the meat and letting it sit maybe overnight, or you can do a wet brine where you're adding these things, your salt, your sugar, garlic, bay leaves, maybe some other things for flavor. You're adding it, combining it together into a liquid, creating a liquid, and then submerging your meat. I like to use the briner bucket. The briner bucket, they've got different sizes. They've got a size large enough to accommodate a whole turkey. I think you can get a whole turkey in there. Well, at least maybe a couple of whole chickens. Turkey might not be big enough for a turkey depending on how large it is, but they do have a pretty large size. They've also got the medium size, and then they've got a little small size, which is good, for smaller cuts. So again, though, generally you're gonna let things brine. I would say maybe minimum 2 hours, but I would recommend going at least 4. And for even more flavor, deeper penetration, you probably want to let your brine, your meat sit into the brine overnight. So it can be time consuming, and you also don't want to let it go like days, especially depending on what type of meat we're talking about, because it can dilute the meat flavor if it's overdone. Okay, pros and cons with regard to your marinade. So marinades, very easy to customize your flavors. And again, as we talked about, provides great surface flavor. The cons: marinades are not going to penetrate your meat deeply, and it can make the texture of your meat too mushy if it's left on for too long. Okay. And injections, pros and cons. So injections, you can achieve fast, quick flavor with an injection. You can achieve deep penetration. The downsides: you do need equipment. You're going to need an injection needle, something like that, something to penetrate the meat. And also, when you're injecting, it can lead to uneven flavor if not done right. Like if you've got too much injection, maybe in one section of the, I don't know, let's say we're doing the brisket, maybe certain sections have gotten hit with that injection, but other sections did not, so you want to try and get your injection into the meat pretty equally. So that can be the downside. All right, now Nate Martinez. Hi, Nate. Thank you for tuning in and leaving a comment. Nate says, I wet brined and injected my turkey for Thanksgiving. I used the injections to add bacon, fat, and butter for added fats in the leaner breast. Thanks for that tip. I had not thought of ever injecting bacon fat, but that sounds like a marvelous idea. And of course, a lot of people, especially with turkeys, are going to try to inject some butter flavor. So that's a good tip. Appreciate you for sharing that. Hope you guys can read this. So again, for the comparisons, if you're just tuning in. So again, we're talking about the differences, the benefits, the pros, the cons when brining, marinating, injecting. Okay, so again, with your brines add moisture and tenderness. It does allow you to get a deep penetration, albeit slowly. If you're factoring in the total amount of time needed to effectively brine something, think 4 to 24 hours, maybe as little as 2, but you're probably not going to get as good as good of a flavor penetration if you only go 2. And again, brines are good for poultry, pork chops, things like that. The marinades add surface flavor. The penetration is going to be pretty shallow. Doesn't require a whole lot of time. It can go for 30 minutes up to maybe 12, although I probably wouldn't go that long with the marinade. And think of using marinades with steaks and chicken breasts. And then injections adds deep flavor instantly, deep penetration, fairly quick, and you're thinking really thick cuts of meat like brisket, pork butt, and turkey. All right, and Nate says, greetings from Utah. All right, well, appreciate you coming on, Nate. We're here every Friday. See, Utah, I think that's mountain time, so that would be 8 p.m. your time. So please don't be a stranger. We talk about all things barbecue, and again, you guys can jump into the comments with questions or comments, your thoughts about brining, marinating, injecting. But then if you have other questions related to barbecue, go ahead, share them with the community. That's what we're here for. If I don't have an answer, there's usually somebody will be in the chat who probably does have an answer to your question. So that's what we're here for, is basically we're just trying to build community and encourage each other in our favorite pastime of barbecue. So let me know, what are you guys' favorite methods? Do you prefer one method over another? So let me give you my thoughts in terms of a preference between the three. So my ultimate preference, what I like to do the most, is brining. For me, I'm kind of a planner, and I do think usually have better success with barbecue, when I plan ahead, and that usually includes the brine. And I like to get my brine together and allow my meats to be in the brine, depending on the cut. But, if I do decide I'm going to brine, it's going to go at least 4 hours. And then if it's a thick cut of meat, I may brine it for 12 or overnight. Also, where possible, I'll try to do a dry brine. Dry brine is pretty quick, in terms of the preparation, and pretty easy. So I just like to, especially like with steaks, get my brine together, let the salt in the brine work its magic, let it sit in the fridge. I've got a second fridge in my garage, let it sit out there and let it go. That's pretty easy. Now, we got a good suggestion from Nate with regard to injecting that I love. Again, Nate suggested and talked about what he likes to do for Thanksgiving is to add bacon fat and butter to his injection. Now, I would say, I guess for me, so again, brining is my favorite. Number 2 would be injecting. And probably the reason why I have it number 2 is just because it is more of a process. As I've gotten more experience with my barbecue, one of the things I try to do where I can is to keep things pretty simple and easy. And at least for me, past experience with injecting doesn't always go easily. Not always simple. I've gone through several needles, and that was probably because of, the ingredients that I used in my injection. I've just had some equipment that have failed on me after a few uses. So actually, Nate, if you're still watching, let us know what equipment are you using to do your injecting? Because I think for me, that's always been one of the downsides. Is finding something that will hold up, especially if you do intend to inject fairly, like on a regular basis. So I'd like to know what kind of injecting equipment do you guys use that can hold up? I've gone through some that have failed on me, after 2 or 3 uses, and that kind of turned me off. As far as the marinating, to me, that's more of a quick fix type of a situation. Yes, maybe short on time. If I haven't prepared a brine or something, then maybe I'll do a marinade. But that's very seldom and rare. So for me, it's going to be brining number 1, especially if I can dry brine. But, I do like to do a wet brine. I've got all the sizes of the briner buckets that make it really easy. Number 2 is going to be that injecting, and then marinades. If push comes to shove and I've got no other options, then maybe I'll go with the marinade. All right, let's see what Nate says. Nate says, you need to heat up the bacon fat and butter with some chicken stock and seasonings to make it easier to inject. All right, so Nate is the man. Nate does some injecting, and he's done this, and he knows the tricks. And that makes good sense as well. And that would be where I would probably have gone wrong, with getting getting my injecting needle, getting it clogged up, would be from not heating up like the bacon fat and the butter. So that's a good tip. And Nate says, as far as like the equipment, Nate recommends the JY Cookment Marinade Injector. Okay. Now, those of you who have watched this podcast know that I do like to to go live here. Sorry, I'm showing my Backyard SmokeMaster Society. And if you guys are interested in taking the communication, what we're talking about even further, we do have an offline barbecue community called the Backyard SmokeMaster Society. And definitely welcome you all to check us out. Go to backyardsmokemaster.com/society to get more information about that. But okay, I wanted to show my screen. Oh, let's see. I wanted to see the JY Cookment. Okay, let me type it in the way that Nate put it in the comments. He said, JY Cookment Marinade Injector. Okay, there it is. Amazon, of course, has everything. Okay, so, and they've currently got a big spring deal happening. So you can pick this up for $8.39 right now. Regular price is looks like about $16-17 is the regular price, and it does look pretty solidly made. And I do like that it's got different size injectors, different size needles. It looks like it comes with a few different sizes. So again, for me, that has typically been one of the downfalls to marinating, but is that, the equipment kind of failing on me, the needles and things like that failing after a little bit of time. But you're getting a live recommendation here, and it does look pretty well made. So again, thank you, Nate, for that. I do appreciate it. And let me go back to the comments here. Okay. Yeah, Nate says, yep, it's a stainless steel injector with multiple diameter needles. Comes with a case. Sold on Amazon. And yeah, so again, just, I'm just going to share another thing for me with injecting. So again, practice makes perfect. So again, one of I think the key things again is to make sure that you get pretty even coverage when you're using an injection needle. Make sure that your meat comes out kind of evenly flavored. So that's something to be cognizant of. All right. So what do you guys think? After hearing this, do any of you guys have, so we know Nate is a big fan of injecting. So what do you guys think of the brining versus marinating, or brining versus injecting? Or is that something that you guys typically incorporate into your barbecue cooks? Are you doing any of that? Are you just going for it? Are you just, before you cook, maybe just adding your rub and just going for it and not really focusing too much on the brine or the injecting? So definitely let me know in the comments. And let's see. So again, and then if you've made it to this part, also do me a big favor. Like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, and then also tell your barbecue buddies about us. Let them know that we're doing a podcast live every Friday. Again, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern time. And if you are listening to us on the replay, you can listen to us on whatever your favorite podcast player is. You can find us there and listen on demand. And it will also do us a big favor if you could leave a review. That would also help us in the algorithm and help us grow the community a bit more. So again, we're just looking to continue to grow, continue to share the barbecue love. And one more time, I'll invite you all to join the Backyard SmokeMaster Society. You can use this QR code, and that'll take you right to backyardsmokemaster.com/society, where you can get more information about the society. Think of it as like a barbecue, kind of like a Facebook type experience, except, we're not on Facebook. We don't have all those other distractions and things like that. It's just strictly barbecue and people supporting each other on with barbecue. So I definitely invite you to check us out. All right. And Nate says, when it comes to brining, always brine whole chicken or any chicken still on the bone. I completely agree with that. I like to do, actually for whole chickens, I'll do the wet brine, and I will let it go overnight. And then I know one of the big issues that a lot of us have with chickens, especially when we get it on the smoker, is then we turn out and we end up disappointed that the skin is a bit rubbery. So when I do this, so I'm planning well in advance. Again, I let my chicken sit in that brine overnight, and then in the morning, I'm going to take it out of the brine. I sit it on a wire rack. I put it back in the fridge after I pat it down as dry as I can, and then I just let it sit in the fridge, butt naked. Just let it sit there and, let it air dry even more for a few hours before I get it onto the smoker. And then when I am ready to cook it, get it on the grill or the smoker, I like to use duck fat, but you can use whatever you want, some type of cooking spray or olive oil or whatever. And then I will apply whatever rub I'm trying to use. And again, because I did do a brine that has salt in it, I'm trying to be cognizant of not using a rub that has too much salt. Don't want to make this too salty, so I'm cognizant of that. And then I'm going to get it onto the smoker, and I'm going to bump up the temperature for chicken. I'm going to let it, I'm going to try to get it to minimum maybe 325, but ideally around 350 or so. And, obviously take it to food safe temperatures. And Nate says, usually he goes about 4 to 6 hours brine for cut up pieces like thighs and legs. Yeah. If I'm doing, I agree with that. If you're doing, cut up pieces, not the whole chicken, then you don't need to let it go overnight. Don't need to let it go nearly as long. All right. Well, all right. Well, we're going to get out of here. Again, I appreciate you guys for tuning in to you all. Let me go back to myself. Thanks to Nate and to Mike. Appreciate you for jumping into the comments. Again, we'll be back with another live podcast, 7 p.m. Pacific, next Friday, 9 p.m. Central, 10 Eastern, right here on YouTube, and also on our Facebook channel. And then again, you can catch us anytime on demand on your favorite podcast for listening to podcast episodes. This is Kenyatta Robinson. Thank you for tuning in. Take care. Get out there. Enjoy your grills and smokers. Cook something this weekend. Again, tell a friend about us. And I will see you all next Friday.